All right, Jabosai, good morning. Let us begin. We are continuing Mesillas Hashem today in Mesillas Yesharim, and we have the incredible schus today to begin Parachav Gimel, to begin the 23rd chapter of Mesillas Yesharim. Jabosai, it is page 8 in the packet. Page 8 in the packet. So Jabosai, so where do we end off today? Kishiyachshov. Good. So if anyone needs, anyone's welcome to use my packet if they have an extra. Oh, you have extra packets? Good. Yeah, borrow mine, please. The simcha. Okay, Chevra, let's go. Parachav Gimel. Or the truth is, do we have a WhatsApp chat for this group? Good. Please, I want us to. If we could do that, a Friday morning Mesillas Yesharim chat. Yes, good. No, I was just suggesting if somebody could take a picture, you could also post it on the. Okay, in any event, so we'll say let's go weiter. So we'll say Parachav Gimel. Say listen to this. Baruch Hashem. No, but I'll just point out we are getting to the end of the Sefer Mesillas Hashem, which is very, very exciting. So remember again that Ramchal says as follows: Parachav Gimel, Bedarchei Knias Hanava. We will say, how does one acquire the midah of humility? Right, Ramchal. Shnayim heim hamargilim es ha'adam el hanava. There are two things which help a person to become humble. Number one, harigilus. So we'll say habituation, ve'isbonein, contemplation. We'll define each of them. We'll also listen to this. Haragilasu. Shabbos say, what's habituation? Shabbos say, so we understand what it means. Habituation means developing patterns of behavior. Which engender a feeling of humility. I will say this is based on the Sefer HaChinuch has a beautiful, beautiful statement. He says, Ultimately, again, the way you feel is shaped by the way you act. This is interesting because I will say a lot of times, I think you see this a lot today, a lot of times people assume it's the opposite. That ultimately, again, you're supposed to feel a certain way first, and then you'll go ahead and act. So you see this all the time, like, you see people saying, like, I want to be inspired. And it's like, okay, like, I'm ready, like, I'm sitting here, like, I'll even put down the remote. I'm ready, like, bring it on. And that's not the way life works. The way life works is, if you want inspiration, you have to engage in inspirational behavior. And then over time, and it may take a long time, the feeling will come. But the work, in other words, the behaviors come first, and then after you engage in the behaviors, then the feeling comes. This entire sefer is predicated on this idea. You want to feel a certain way, you want a certain midah inside of you, you have to act a certain way, and after a sustained amount, a sustained amount of time of establishing a behavioral pattern, ultimately the feeling comes afterwards. So a person wants to feel humility, okay, you have to act a certain way. That's regilus. Regilus means establishing a behavioral pattern. Here we go. A person has to act in a humble fashion. How do you do this? I will say, a person doesn't always need, person doesn't always require, right? Person doesn't always require, right, a bakavadik seat, right? Sit ultimately again in the more humble places. I will say, for the lechas besofa chevra, you stand in the back of the line, stand in the back of the chevra, right? A little bosh, big date sinuim. Wear humble clothing. Listen to this. Person has to dress nicely. I will say very important. A person can never look like a shlump, right? A person always has to dress nicely. But you don't have to wear the expensive, or you don't have to showcase the expensive brands, right? So a person should always look nice, but a person doesn't have to get carried away. So also look what he's describing, right? You don't have to sit on the Mizrach Vant, right? Don't walk in the front of the group, walk in the back of the group. Wear nice clothing, but it doesn't have to be broadcast to everyone what it is that you're wearing. Simple things. When I habituate myself to acting in this way, I will say humility seeps into me a little bit at a time. Ad Shetikabo bo karoi. Until humility, I will say, ultimately what? Becomes part of when I will say, this is such an incredibly important thing. Sometimes, especially the experiences that we have in Eretz Yisrael, like I'll say, a lot of the experiences we have, like they go to 0 to 60 in like 3 minutes, right? We got off a bus, we're right at Rabbi Akiva, we're right at Ramchal, right, to Chavat Arugo, to Marasa Machpelah. Like these are intense experiences. And what's interesting is, a lot of times what ends up happening is, I'll say, what happens? What happens in the aftermath of intense experiences, right? Fatigue. I don't know what to do with fatigue. Come on, stop it. Stop it, fatigue. Right? So what happens is, a lot of times is, you don't know what to do with it. Right? It was like, think about this. What's the biggest talk of our day yesterday? Sheep purchases. Which is like, if you think about it, really, like, why? Because we'll say, deep down, what's really happening inside of us is, I actually don't know what to do with everything yesterday. I don't know what to do with it. Right? I don't know what to do with the fact that I saw that, by the way, a Thursday morning shachris doesn't have to be something that lasts 35 minutes, and that my talis and tefillin are off already by tachon. Right? I saw that a weekday davening could actually be something that is meaningful. I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes because I experienced it, because I lived it. I saw that at the end of the day, I am really a child of Yaakov and Leah, because I sat by their kvarim for 2 hours and I learned and I davened. And I went to a place and I saw like Jews who are mamish, like building up Eretz Yisrael, and that individual people, like regular guys, could observe a Shemitah, could do dramatic and heroic things, right? I stood by Rabbi Akiva. So, let's say, so deep down, what's happening over here is like, I don't know what to do with all of it. I don't know what to do with all of it. So I will say, so the key to all of these experiences is to take out something little. And then, okay, that little thing, that's what I'm going to internalize. Don't get lost in the sheep, right? That's not a metaphor, right? That's actually literal, right? In other words, to take something little and like, now, okay, that's what I'm ingesting. That's okay. So like, I could daven better. Okay, that's ma'at. That's something I'm going to take with me, right? I could go ahead and really dedicate myself to a cause, whatever the cause is going to be. The cause could be my shul, the cause could be my yeshiva, the cause could be a chasar, the cause could be whatever you want it to be. But like, I saw that people could be selflessly dedicated to a cause. So instead of being involved in a million things, like at 30%, I'm going to constrict my focus a little bit and be involved in a few major things. And I'm really going to move the needle on them. So I will say, that's what you do with experiences like we've been having. The big experiences are overwhelming, and so I come back, I'm on a high, and like I have no idea what to do with it. To isolate little particles, little pieces, little nitzotzos, little sparks. That's what Ramchal is saying. He says, the way change works is ma'at. You internalize little nuggets, and those little sparks, those little things, those are the things that change me a little bit at a time. It's so profound. He goes on, he says, so he goes on, he says, Baderach hazeh, tikanis esava anava beliba, ma'at, ad shetikaba bokaroi, until anava, so I'll say these little behavioral things, until anava ultimately becomes part and parcel of who I am. Ki hine biyos teva lev ha'adam lazuach lisnaseh, Rabbi says very important, the teva, the nature of man, ultimately is to be arrogant. The nature of man is to say, B'shvili, nivra olam. Magiali, ani agever, everything is owed to me. The nature of man is to be arrogant, to be self-centered, to be egocentric. Kasha love la'akrami karnatiyativ esazos. He'll say it's very, and this is very, by the way, it's very affirming, right? Our default disposition is arrogance, egocentricity, self-centeredness. That's the nature of man. So I will say this is why acquiring anava is so incredibly difficult, because it causes me to go against my nature. And if you want to change your nature, I will say the only way to do it is ma'at, a little bit at a time. Say, how do you change feelings? You change feelings through actions. Change your actions a little bit at a time. A little bit at a time. By changing my actions a little bit at a time, the way I feel will change a little bit at a time. Habilti masr lo kolkach. Okay, Rabbi says, by the way, it's so profound. Here what Ram just said. How you feel is often not in your control, but how you act is always in your control. I'll say, is that not an incredible idea? Incredible idea. I'll say, by the way, and do you not feel more connected to the Ramchal now that we stood by our Rebbe's kever just a few days? But look what our Rebbe's teaching us. Look what our Rebbe's teaching us, I will say. You can't control how you feel. And by the way, isn't that affirming? You can't control how you feel. Or I would modify it a little bit. I would say you can't control how you feel initially. Right? In other words, sometimes I'm jealous, sometimes I'm angry, but you can't control how you feel, but you can always control how you act. Therefore, the Ramchal says, this is incredible, people often spend too much time trying to change how they feel, when instead the best thing to do is what? Change how you act. And when you change how you act, something amazing happens, which is, you change how you feel. I will say, is that not godless? Is that not godless? I spend my life trying to change how I feel, and I can't even have so much control over feelings. No, change the way I act. I mean, no, you shouldn't change the way I act. You should change the way you act, right? First, we should change the way we act, and when you alter your behaviors enough, that'll change the way that you feel. Incredible. Shekol zeh nichal ma'amar zikron l'tova li'olam yehi adam arum biyira dahainu shevakish tachbulos neged hateva unetiyaso ad shinatzchin. So that's what it means, that a person should always be cunning with yira. What does that mean? That Allah Chalamaysa should realize I really can't control the way that I act. I can't control the way that I feel. I can always control the way that I act. And if I modify my behaviors, ultimately, again, I modify my feelings as well. Over time. We'll say one more piece, one more paragraph, and then we'll stop. The Ramchal says, person has to contemplate other things as well. So we'll say that's the first part of acquiring anava, right? Part number one is regilus, habituation of behaviors. Engage in humble behaviors, and over time you will feel that sense of humility. The second part is contemplation. What does contemplation mean? So the second part is contemplation. What am I contemplating? Rabbi said the first point of contemplation is, Akavi ben Mahalel says, Rabbi said, you should know, one of the most moving things is in Eretz Yisrael, if you've ever been to a Levaya here, it's not in our itinerary, but it's fascinating to see the way the Chavra Kadishas conduct Levayas here. One of the most moving things they do is that usually the head of the Chavra Kadisha says this Mishnah over the mace. Akavya ben Mahalel omer da me'ayin basa. Know where you came from. Mitipa sucha, from a putrid drop. Ula'ana taholich, and where are you going? Lamakom afar rima v'tolea, to a place of worms and dirt. V'lifnei miata omelitain din v'cheshbon, who you're going to give judgment before? Lifnei melach machem lochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Both say, contemplate this statement in your mind over and over and over again. Ki be'emes kol eileh heim negdim l'gaiva v'osim al-anava. Both say, Nothing goes out and pushes out thoughts of gaiva of arrogance like this statement of Makavya ben Mahalalel. Just know you come from humble beginnings. You come from nothing. You go back to nothing. And at the end of the day, you have to give an accounting and a judgment for every single thing you've done in life before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I will say, by the way, this is not to make us feel down on ourselves. Not at all. This is just to give us a sense of healthy perspective. Sometimes we get a bit too carried away with who and what we are. It's important that we have perspective about what we are and what we're not. So when a person begins to literally contemplate just how little and how meaningless everything material really is, person should not get carried away with himself, but rather a person becomes humble. Rabbi say, what could this be compared to? Listen to this. I will say this could be compared to a pig shepherd, a pig herder. I don't know if it's a shepherd or whatever, pig guy, right? A pig farmer, right? So what happens if the pig farmer becomes king? Let's say, what's the way that he always becomes humble? Was it right when people remind him of what? Of something is. We'll say, well, I'll just point out. I'll point out something amazing. You should just know. By the way, it's also Yom Achashverosh. The Gemara Meseches Megillah brings down that one of the things about Achashverosh, and the reason why Achashverosh had such an inferiority complex was because he was a stable boy. He was never really able to feel like a king. Ultimately, again, because of his home beginnings. We'll also add in one more piece. The Maharal of Prague says, if you think about it, Yehuda, right? Malchus, monarchy comes from Shevet Yehuda. I will say, what's the origin of Shevet Yehuda? What's the origin? Right, Tamar, right? And that is quite an interesting story, right? In other words, we'll say, most of us skip that in school, right? In other words, right? Start with Tamar, Yehuda thinks that she's a Zona, he ends up having twins with her, right? And then I will say, so that's one part. And then, of course, the other part of the monarchical story is Rus, right? A convert who comes in, whose conversion was laced with much machlokas. Was it a good conversion, not a good conversion? The Maharal says, why is, monarchy generally prides itself on one thing, which is what? Pedigree, right? It's all about, right? Or the whole thing. The Maharal says, so our monarchy is so interesting. Our monarchy begins with a woman who dressed up as a Zona, right? And then goes ahead to trick her father-in-law, right? Then it goes on to, so we'll say why the Maharal says, because the greatest danger to monarchy is gaiva. What is the best way to keep the monarch humble? Hey king, I know you're great. Let's open up a Chumash Bereshis. Let's talk about the Alter Bava. Right? What is the story of your mishpacha? Right? Oh, that's an interesting one. I will say, what does that do? It keeps the monarchy humble. Because when a person remembers their humble origins, and again, as human beings, our humble origin is we come from a drop and we go back to dust. And I will say, at the end of the day, right, the hearse doesn't have a luggage rack, right? So at the end of the day, no matter how much you acquire, no matter how much you do, how many letters before your name, after your name, how many accounts, how many homes, how many experiences, none of that goes with you. None of it goes with you. So at the end of the day, I come from nothing, and the only thing I have after 120, I will say, is my Torah, my Maisim Tovim, and hopefully the inspiration I left my family with. That's all I have. All the Ramchal says is just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, and that'll keep you humble. So habitual behaviors, engage in humble behaviors, simple behaviors, and ultimately, again, think humble thoughts, and says the Ramchal, that's the beginning of humility. So, Bosai? Sure. Bosai, what a way. What? We should do this every Erev Shabbos. We should do this every Erev Shabbos. Bosai, Shkoyach. Chevra, I think now, just to save your attention just for a second.